Maria was a woman who never cared much about appearances. She liked keeping things simple. She wore plain clothes, tied her hair in a ponytail, and didn't wear fancy jewelry or expensive makeup. Even though she lived in a big house and had everything she could ever need, she preferred to live quietly. People who saw her on the street would never guess she was the wife of a billionaire. One bright morning, Maria decided to do something special. Her husband, Alexander, had been talking about cars a lot recently. He loved them, especially classic and luxury models. But because he was always so busy running his businesses, he never got the chance to go shopping for one. Maria thought it would be nice to surprise him by picking out a car he would love. She didn't want to make a big deal out of it. She just wanted to visit a few dealerships, learn about the cars, and maybe bring him along later if she found something good. Maria didn't ask anyone to go with her. She didn't call her driver. She didn't wear anything fancy. She slipped into a pair of old jeans, a simple t-shirt, and flat shoes. She tied her hair back, picked up her bag, and drove herself to one of the most expensive car dealerships in town. The dealership looked more like a palace than a car showroom. The floors were shining, the walls were covered in mirrors and lights, and every car inside looked like it belonged in a movie. Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Lamborghinis sparkled. Outside, 2 employees in suits stood near the entrance, chatting. They looked at Maria as she walked toward the door, then glanced at each other and smiled in a way that wasn't kind. One of them whispered something, and they both chuckled quietly. Maria didn't pay attention to them. She smiled and walked in, looking around in wonder. She had never seen so many expensive cars in one place. She went up to the receptionist and said politely, "Hi, I was wondering if someone could help me learn more about the cars here. I'm thinking of buying one as a gift for my husband." The receptionist was a young woman with bright red nails and a fake smile. She looked Maria up and down slowly, from her shoes to her hair. Do you have an appointment?" she asked, already typing on her computer. "No," Maria said with a kind smile. "I just came by to take a look," the receptionist gave a small sigh and said, "Well, it might be a while. All of our salesmen are busy right now." Then she picked up her phone and pretended to be on a call. Maria nodded. She didn't want to make a fuss. She walked over to one of the beautiful black cars near the center of the room and looked at the details. She admired the smooth leather seats and shining paint. She didn't touch anything. She just observed quietly, trying to imagine Alexander. Behind the wheel, minutes passed. Then more minutes. Maria sat on a small waiting couch near the entrance. She watched as other people entered the dealership, mostly men in suits or women wearing designer clothes. They were greeted with smiles, handshakes, and offers of coffee. Salesmen rushed over to them, ready to help, but no one came to Maria. She waited for over 45 minutes. Finally, she stood up and walked to a tall man in a gray suit who seemed to be in charge. His name tag read, "Derek Sales Manager." Maria gently said, "Excuse me, sir. I was wondering if you might have a moment to answer a few questions. I'm looking for a car for my husband, and I'd appreciate some guidance." Derek turned around slowly and gave her a long, cold look. "Ma'am," he said in a loud, sharp voice, "this dealership is not for browsing. These cars cost more than most houses. Don't allow people to wander around unless they're serious." "I am serious," Maria replied calmly, though. Her cheeks turned a little red. "Really?" Derek smirked. "You want to buy a Rolls-Royce dressed like that? Did you walk here?" Maria was stunned. She looked down at her clothes, then back at him. "I drove here, yes. But I'm not sure what my clothes have to do with anything. I only asked for some information." Derek stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Listen. We get your type in here all the time. You think you can take pictures, post them on social media, and pretend you're rich? I have real clients to serve. So if you're not planning to buy today, maybe you should come back when you're ready. And dressed a little more properly." Maria blinked. She wasn't angry as she was hurt. She had never been spoken to like this before. She wasn't trying to show off or waste anyone's time. She just wanted to surprise her husband. She took a deep breath and said quietly, "I think I'll leave now. Thank you." As she turned to go, she heard Derek laugh and say to another salesman, another one pretending to be rich, It's always the ones in jeans. The word stung. Maria walked out of the dealership and into the parking lot. She got into her modest SUV and sat there for a moment, hands shaking slightly. Tears welled up in her eyes, not because of the insult, but because of how unfair it felt. Why did people think money looked a certain way? Why did they treat others so badly just because of clothes or appearance? She took a tissue from her bag and wiped her eyes. Then she started the car and drove home. The drive to her house took about 30 minutes. She passed busy roads, crossed a small bridge, and finally arrived at the tall gates that led to the Quinn estate. As soon as the guard recognized her, the gates opened. The long driveway curved through a garden full of flowers, leading to a mansion with glass windows and marble pillars. Maria pulled into the garage and stepped inside. The house was quiet. Alexander was on a video call in his home office. Maria didn't disturb him. She went to the kitchen, made some tea, and sat by the window. Thinking about the way she was treated, when Alexander finished his call, he came out to find her still sitting there. "Is everything okay, love?" he asked, kissing her forehead. Maria smiled softly. "Yes, but something strange happened today." She told him the whole story, how she went to the dealership, how they ignored her, how the manager treated her like trash, and how badly it made her feel. She didn't cry, but Alexander could see the pain in her eyes. He sat down across from her, hands clasped together. His face was calm, but there was something intense in his eyes. "And you said nothing about who you are? You didn't tell them? Your name?" Maria shook her head. "Why would I? I didn't want special treatment, just wanted to be treated like any other customer." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked over to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in gold and pink. He took out his phone and made a call. "Yes," he said. "Have the car ready tomorrow morning and call the dealership. Tell them Mr. Quinn would like to visit. Make sure the entire staff is there." Maria looked at him, surprised. "You don't have to do anything, really?" But Alexander smiled gently. "No, I don't have to. But I want to. Not because I'm angry, because I think it's time someone reminded them that dignity has nothing to do with clothes or money." Maria didn't argue. She knew when Alexander had made up his mind. She reached across the table and took his hand. And in that quiet moment, they both knew something was about to change, not just for them, but for everyone who thought kindness only came in designer clothes. That evening, the soft lights inside the mansion glowed warmly as the sun dipped below the ocean outside. Maria was quiet, sipping tea while sitting on the wide sofa near the fireplace. Her thoughts kept going back to the way she had been treated. At the car dealership, it wasn't just the rude words that stayed in her mind, it was the way she had been looked at, like she was invisible, like she didn't belong there. She wasn't even trying to impress anyone. She had just wanted to buy a gift for her husband, to do something thoughtful. Alexander sat beside her now, his face thoughtful and calm. He wasn't the type of man who lost his temper easily. He was known in the business world as a man of few words, but strong actions. He had built his empire from scratch, starting with a small tech company in his garage in his early 20s. Over the years, he had grown it into a billion-dollar group of companies, but he had never let the money change who he was at his core. He remained humble, quiet, and completely in love with Maria. They had met in a bookstore nearly 10 years ago. Maria had been working there part-time while studying, so Alexander had walked in looking for a biography about an inventor. They had talked for over an hour about books, history, and life. She didn't recognize him as a tech billionaire, and he liked that. From the very beginning, she had seen him for who he really was, not for the money, the power, or the fame. That's why he loved her. That's why he married her. Now, as he listened to her story about what happened at the dealership, his jaw tightened just slightly. "So they didn't offer you water, didn't greet you, and told you to come back when you're ready to be serious?" he asked calmly. Maria nodded, her fingers wrapped around her mug. "I wasn't angry, just disappointed. It felt like they didn't even see me as a person, like I didn't matter." Alexander looked down for a moment, then stood up and went to his study. Maria didn't follow him right away. She knew her husband well. He was thinking, planning. That was just how he worked. Inside his study, Alexander sat at his large oak desk and opened his laptop. He typed quickly and pulled up the dealership's website. He found the name of the general manager and made a call to his assistant, Daniel. "Want you to schedule a visit to the dealership tomorrow morning," he said firmly. "Make sure everyone is there, the general manager, the sales staff, everyone." Daniel was used to hearing unusual requests from Alexander, but this one surprised him. "Would you like them to prepare a specific car, sir?" Daniel asked. "No," Alexander replied. "I want them to expect a buyer with real money, but they won't know who it is. No warning, no red carpet. Just make sure they're ready." Daniel paused, then said, "Understood." The call, Alexander returned to Maria. She was still sitting on the sofa, quietly reading a book now. Though her eyes weren't moving across the page, he sat next to her again and gently touched her hand. "I'm not doing this to prove a point with anger," he said softly, "but they need to learn a lesson about respect, and I want them to learn it from the person they look down on." Maria looked up at him and smiled slightly. "Trust you," she said. The next morning, everything was in motion. Alexander's staff had polished his matte black Rolls-Royce Phantom to perfection. The car looked like something out of a movie, sleek, powerful, and elegant. Maria wore her usual clothes again. She refused to change herself just to prove something to people who didn't deserve her respect. Wore the same jeans, a light cardigan, and flat shoes. She tied her hair back again and kept her natural face without makeup. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the Rolls-Royce glided silently through the streets of the city. The driver, dressed in a sharp black suit, navigated the traffic smoothly. Maria and Alexander sat in the back seat. She glanced at him and asked softly, "Are you sure about this?" Alexander smiled, eyes focused ahead. "I've never been more sure." As they approached the dealership, the employees inside were already rushing around. They had received a call that morning from someone powerful, someone who only said a VIP would arrive and that they should be prepared. The general manager, Mr. Collins, had told all staff to dress sharp, stand straight, and treat everyone with the highest respect. He didn't know who was coming, but he knew it mattered. Derek, the same sales manager who had insulted Maria, was walking around confidently. He was wearing his best suit and had even sprayed a little extra cologne that morning. He believed a big deal was coming, and he wanted the commission. He kept telling the other staff, "Let me handle it. I've got a great record with VIP clients." At exactly 10 a.m., the black Rolls-Royce pulled into the dealership's front entrance. Everyone stopped what they were doing, heads turned. The valet rushed outside. The receptionist stood up straight. Even Mr. Collins came down from his office. Alexander stepped out of the car first, wearing a crisp charcoal gray suit, sunglasses, and polished shoes. The way he carried himself made it clear this was not an ordinary customer. Then Maria stepped out behind him. Her simple outfit was in clear contrast to the luxury car and Alexander's elegant appearance. For a moment, the staff stared. Some of them whispered to each other. The receptionist recognized Maria. Her face went pale. Derek, still grinning, had not noticed yet. He walked up quickly, adjusting his tie. "Good morning, sir," Derek said in his smoothest voice. "Welcome to our dealership. How can we serve you today?" Alexander didn't shake his hand. He turned to Maria, held out his arm, and she gently took it. Together, they walked past Derek without saying a word. Mr. Collins rushed forward next. "Sir, madam, please allow me to personally assist you. May I ask, do you have an appointment?" Alexander stopped walking and turned to face the entire group of employees, all now standing in a nervous half circle. "I believe you all met my wife yesterday," Alexander said, his voice calm but powerful. Dead silence. Maria looked around slowly. The receptionist lowered her eyes. One of the younger salesmen looked away in shame. Derek's smile vanished. His face turned red. "I believe she came here looking for a car," Alexander continued. "She wasn't asking for special treatment. She didn't mention my name. She didn't flash cash or act superior. She asked for help politely. And she was insulted, ignored, mocked." Maria remained quiet beside him. She didn't look angry. She looked calm, strong. somehow even more powerful in her simplicity. Alexander looked directly at Derek. You laughed at her, told her she didn't belong here, said she wasn't serious. Derek opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Mr. Collins tried to jump in. Mr. Quinn, I am so terribly sorry. If we had known that's the problem, Alexander interrupted. You shouldn't need to know someone's name to treat them with respect. The entire room fell silent again. Maria looked at the staff and finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. I didn't come to embarrass anyone. I just wanted to do something kind for my husband. But I left feeling like I wasn't even human to you. Her words were like a knife butt, not sharp in anger, sharp in truth. Alexander nodded. We didn't come here to punish. We came to teach. Because if this is how you treat people who don't look rich, then you're in the wrong business. Looked at Mr. Collins and said, I'd like the entire staff present tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'll be sending in a training team experts in customer experience, respect, and equality. I'll cover all costs. But if anything like this happens again, I'll make sure this place is exposed across every media platform I control. Understood? Mr. Collins swallowed hard and nodded quickly. Maria smiled kindly and said, and next. Time someone like me walks into someone quiet, someone simple, don't push them aside. You never know who they are or what they carry in their heart. Then, without buying a car or saying another word, Alexander and Maria turned and walked back to the Rolls-Royce. They didn't need to buy anything that day. They'd already made the most valuable purchase of all, a moment of truth. And now, the people in that dealership would never forget the day a simple woman returned, with a lesson and a Rolls-Royce. The morning sun rose gently over the city, casting a warm golden light that reflected softly off the sleek buildings and quiet streets. Inside the garage of the Quinn estate, the matte black Rolls-Royce Phantom stood ready, shining as if it had just been made. The car was a masterpiece, its polished surface smooth like glass, its powerful engine quietly waiting to roar. This was no ordinary car. It was a symbol of elegance, power, and wealth. Yet inside the house, Maria was dressed. Just like any other woman, simple jeans, a soft sweater, and comfortable shoes. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing flashy. She believed her true strength came not from what she wore, but from who she was inside. Alexander sat beside her in the back seat, his face calm but determined. They were heading back to the dealership where Maria had been treated badly the day before, but this time, things were going to be different. Alexander wanted to show the staff what respect really meant, and teach them a lesson about judging others by their appearance. As the Rolls-Royce rolled smoothly through the streets, people turned to look. Some whispered, recognizing the luxury car. Others simply stared, impressed by the elegance of the vehicle. But Maria didn't care about the attention. She focused on the journey ahead, thinking quietly about what was to come. When the car arrived at the dealership, a crowd had already gathered. News had spread that someone important was coming, but no one knew exactly who. The general manager, Mr. Collins, was pacing nervously near the entrance, checking his watch and talking on his phone. The staff inside had been told to treat every customer like royalty today, and their nerves were obvious. Inside the dealership, Derek was trying to appear confident. He was wearing his best suit, his hair perfectly styled, and he had practiced his charming smile in the mirror that morning. He was sure he would be the one to handle the VIP client, dreaming of the big sale and the generous commission that came with it. He bragged loudly to the other salesmen, saying, "Watch and learn. I'm about to close the deal of a lifetime." When the black Rolls-Royce pulled into the driveway, everything changed. Alexander stepped out first, tall and elegant in a tailored suit that fit him perfectly. His calm but commanding presence made the staff stop in their tracks. It was a man, used to power and respect, and everyone could feel it the moment he appeared. Then Maria stepped out behind him, quiet and simple as always. Her plain clothes contrasted sharply with the shining car and the formal suits of the staff, making some of the employees exchange confused glances. The receptionist recognized Maria immediately. Her face turned pale as she remembered how she had ignored the woman the day before. Derek, too, recognized her, but kept smiling, trying to hide his embarrassment. He stepped forward with confidence, ready to impress. "Good morning, sir," Derek said smoothly, extending his hand toward Alexander. "Welcome back to our dealership. How can we assist you today?" Alexander didn't take Derek's hand. Instead, he offered his arm to Maria, who took it gently. Together, they walked past Derek without a word. The sales manager's confident smile faded, replaced by a look of shock. Mr. Collins hurried down from his office and greeted them. "Mr. Quinn, Mrs. Quinn, welcome. Please allow me to assist you personally." Alexander turned to face the staff, his voice calm but powerful. "I believe you all met my wife yesterday." The room fell silent. All eyes were on Maria, and many of the employees looked ashamed. Alexander continued, "She came here looking for a car, like any customer. She did not mention who I was. She did not ask for special treatment. Yet, she was treated with disrespect, ignored, mocked." Maria stood beside him, her calm presence speaking louder than words. Alexander looked directly at Derek, his eyes steady. "You laughed at her, told her she didn't belong here, said she wasn't serious." Derek opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. His usual confidence was gone. Mr. Collins tried to apologize, but Alexander raised a hand. "You don't need to apologize to me. You need to understand that respect is not about money, clothes, or status. It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone." Maria spoke then, her voice soft but firm. "I came here to do something kind, to surprise my husband with a gift, but I left feeling invisible." Her words hung in the air, touching everyone. In the room, Alexander then said, "We didn't come here to punish anyone. We came to teach. To remind you that judging people by their appearance is wrong." He told Mr. Collins, "I'm sending a training team tomorrow to work with your staff on respect and customer service. And if anything like this happens again, I will make sure everyone knows." The dealership staff looked down, humbled. Derek in particular felt the weight of his actions deeply. Maria smiled kindly and said, "Next time someone like me walks in, please remember that everyone deserves kindness and respect." Without buying a car or saying another word, Alexander and Maria turned and walked back to their Rolls Royce. They didn't need to prove anything with money or power. They had already made their point. The true value was in respect, kindness, and dignity. As the Rolls Royce drove away, the staff watched quietly, knowing they had witnessed something important. That day would be remembered not just for the arrival of a billionaire in his luxury car, but for the lesson that sometimes the simplest people teach the greatest truths. The moment the dealership staff gathered in the meeting room, the air felt heavy with a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. They had never seen a situation quite like this before. Alexander and Maria were not here to yell or punish, but something deeper was about to happen. Instead of anger, there was calmness, a kind of quiet power that made everyone pay attention. Maria stood quietly beside Alexander. Her face was soft, but her eyes shone with a quiet strength. She didn't need to raise her voice or demand respect. The way she carried herself told the whole story. People could see that she was someone who deserved respect, not because of her clothes or her husband's money, but because of who she was inside. Alexander began by telling the staff what had happened the day before. He spoke slowly and clearly, describing how Maria had walked into the dealership with no special announcement, no fancy clothes, no demands. She simply asked for help to buy a car for her husband, a simple, kind request. But instead of being welcomed, she was mocked and ignored. He explained how hurtful that was and how it made them look as a business. The room was silent. Some employees looked down, ashamed. Others exchanged glances, surprised by the honesty. Alexander wasn't here to shame anyone individually, but to help them understand the bigger picture. Then Maria spoke. Her voice was calm but firm. She told them how it felt to be invisible, to walk into a place where people judge you before they even know your story. She talked about the pain of being rejected, not because of who she was, but because of what she wore or how she looked. She said, "I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I came here hoping to find kindness. I want you all to remember that every person who walks through your doors has a story. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they just want to be seen for who they really are." Her words struck a chord. Many in the room began to realize how easy it was to make quick judgments and how wrong that could be. Alexander then spoke about respect, the kind bought with money, but the kind that comes from the heart. He explained that true respect means treating everyone with dignity, no matter their clothes, their car, or their bank account. If you don't respect the person standing in front of you, he said, you lose the chance to build trust, to make a connection, and ultimately to succeed. He announced that he was making a donation to a local organization that trained people in customer service and empathy. "I want to help not just this dealership," he said, "but anyone who works with people every day. Learn how to see beyond the surface." Then the unexpected happened. The owner of the dealership arrived. She had heard about the incident from social media and from the staff's nervous calls. She was a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Carefully to Alexander and Maria, then looked around the room. Her gaze landed on Derek, the sales manager who had insulted Maria. "Derek," she said firmly, "I can't allow this kind of behavior in my dealership. You have embarrassed us all. I'm sorry, but I must let you go." Derek's face turned red. Tried to speak, but the owner raised her hand. "No more excuses. This is a lesson for all of you." The room was quiet. Derek gathered his things and left the building, weight of his actions sinking in with every step. The rest of the staff looked at each other, feeling the gravity of what had happened. They approached Maria, one by one, offering apologies, genuine and heartfelt. Maria smiled and forgave them. "All," she told them. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how we learn from them and change." Before leaving, Alexander and Maria spoke once more to the group. They encouraged the staff to remember kindness and to always see the person, not the clothes or the status. They reminded them that a simple smile or a respectful word could change someone's day, maybe even their life. As they walked out of the dealership, the mood had shifted. What began as a painful experience had turned into a powerful lesson about humanity and respect. The staff, now humbled, felt a renewed sense of purpose to treat every customer as if they were family. Outside, the sun was shining brighter, as if reflecting the new light that had entered the dealership. Maria and Alexander got into the Rolls. Royce drove away quietly. It didn't need applause or fanfare. Her mission was complete, not with anger or force, but with kindness and hope. And so, a place that once looked down on a simple woman was now on the path to becoming a place where everyone could feel welcome, no matter who they were or what they wore. Of course, here's part 5 of the story expanded into approximately 2,500 words, written in simple and interesting English with a natural, heartfelt tone of headings. Just the full story. The sun was soft that morning, casting a golden glow over the city. Birds chirped faintly in the distance as Maria stepped out of the Rolls-Royce, her hand gently held by Alexander. Despite the media attention from the day before, Maria remained calm. She wasn't dressed in designer clothes or covered in jewelry. She wore a simple white blouse, faded blue jeans, and her hair was tied back in a neat ponytail. She smiled at Alexander as they walked into the dealership together, the same place that had laughed at her just a day earlier. Inside, everything was different now. The same employees who once ignored her now stood straight, alert, and respectful. There was no mocking laughter this time, only quiet, nervous energy. Maria didn't look at them with anger. She looked around with peace in her eyes, as if none of it mattered anymore, because for her it didn't. She hadn't come back for revenge. She had come for something more important. Alexander was beside her, as always calm, composed, but protective. His presence alone was powerful. But it was the way he looked at Maria with quiet love and deep respect that truly left people speechless. He wasn't just a billionaire businessman. He was a man in love with a woman who lived simply, and that made her powerful in ways money never could. As they walked around the showroom, Maria stopped in front of a sleek, eco-friendly luxury car. It wasn't the most expensive model in the room. In fact, it was one of the more modest ones. But it was elegant, well-built, and environmentally friendly, everything Maria cared about. She looked at Alexander and gave a small nod. He smiled knowingly. "This is the one," she said softly. "You're sure?" he asked. She nodded. "It's perfect." Assistant rushed over to help them, this time with genuine kindness, not fake politeness. Maria appreciated that. She didn't want anyone to pretend. She just wanted people to treat each other with respect, no matter who they were. As the paperwork was being prepared, a quiet buzz began to build outside the showroom. Someone had spotted Alexander's Rolls-Royce again, and word spread quickly. Within minutes, people started gathering near the windows, phones in hand. A few bold ones even entered the dealership. Pretending to look at cars, but secretly hoping to see the billionaire couple in person, one woman, middle-aged and curious, whispered to her daughter, "That's her, the one who was kicked out yesterday. And that's her husband. He's a billionaire, but she looks so normal." Maria overheard and simply smiled. She didn't mind being called normal. In fact, she preferred it. A young man near the service desk was already recording a video, quietly capturing the moment. He had seen the story online the night before and couldn't believe he was now witnessing it live. "She's even more graceful in real life," he whispered to a friend. By the time Maria and Alexander completed the paperwork and walked toward their new car, several short video clips had already gone viral. Titles like "Billionaires," "Wife Teaches Car Dealership a Lesson in Kindness and Simple Woman." Powerful message were spreading across social media platforms. Thousands of people were watching, commenting, praising Maria for her quiet strength and gentle heart. But Maria didn't know any of this yet. She was more focused on the road ahead. She opened the passenger door and slipped inside the new vehicle, enjoying the soft seats and clean scent. Alexander joined her behind the wheel. The staff watched as the couple prepared to leave, unsure of what to say. Then, just as the car started to pull away, one of the younger salesmen ran forward. "Wait, ma'am," called out of breath. Alexander paused, rolling down the window. The young man looked directly at Maria. I wanted to say thank you for how you handled everything. You could have humiliated all of us. But you didn't. You made me think about the kind of person I want to be." Maria looked at him with warmth. "That means more than you know," she said gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after." He nodded, eyes a little misty, and stepped back. As the car pulled away, more staff waved. Time, not out of fear or guilt, but out of respect. The city looked different through the car's windows. Maybe it was the sunlight, or maybe it was just the feeling of hope. Maria leaned her head against the seat and let out a deep breath. Alexander glanced at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm just thinking. It's strange how something so small, a visit to a car showroom, can turn into something so big." Smiled. "That's the power of staying true to yourself." Back at home, Maria and Alexander returned to their quiet life. They didn't speak much about the dealership after that day, but the world didn't forget. The story kept growing. News channels picked it up. Blogs wrote about it. Influencers talked about it. Some called it a modern fairy tale. Others called it a lesson the world needed to hear. But Maria didn't care about fame. She didn't do it for attention. She didn't even like cameras. When a major news station asked her for an interview, she politely declined. "I don't need to talk," she said. "The message is already out there." Meanwhile, the dealership underwent major changes. The owner brought in a new manager, someone with a strong background in people skills and compassion. Every single staff member was required to go through special training on customer respect, equality, and service with empathy. Posters were put up in the break rooms that read, "Treat everyone with dignity, because everyone matters." Passed, and the dealership's reputation transformed completely. For once it had been known for snobbishness, now it was praised for its respectful and welcoming environment. People of all backgrounds felt comfortable walking in. Some even said they went just to see if the kindness story was true. And it was. One quiet morning, an elderly woman in a faded sari stepped into the dealership with her grandson. She didn't look wealthy. She didn't even speak fluent English. But the staff treated her like royalty. They gave her tea, showed her around, explained everything with patience, and helped her grandson pick out a small used car for his new job. As they left, she turned and smiled. "I saw the video," she said softly. "The one with the kind lady. She changed everything." Back in their oceanfront home, Maria sat on the patio, sipping tea and watching the waves. Her phone buzzed every now and then with messages from strangers around the world, some thanking her, others sharing their own stories of being judged or overlooked. Maria read each one quietly, her heart growing a little heavier and a little fuller at the same time. One message stood out. It was from a young girl in Brazil who had seen the viral video and written, "I always thought I had to look rich to be respected. Now I know being kind is more powerful." Maria wiped a tear from her eye. That one message made everything worth it. She looked up as Alexander joined her, carrying a second cup of tea. He sat beside her, and for a while they just listened to the sound of the ocean. "You did good," he said. "We did good," she replied, and they smiled. Not because they had bought a new car, or because the world now knew who they were, but because they had reminded people of something that should never be forgotten. That every person, no matter how they look, dress, or speak, deserves kindness. And sometimes the simplest people carry the biggest lessons. They held hands as the sun began to set, driving into the future, not just in a new car, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Because real wealth wasn't in the price of the vehicle. It was in the values they lived by every day. And somewhere in the city, another woman walked into another showroom in simple clothes, unsure if she belonged. But this time, someone smiled and said, "Welcome. How can I help you today?" And that small change, born from a quiet act of dignity, made all the difference.